happy, productive life, but sometimes we just need a little help. Our Coach On Call experts provide strategies to help you live your best life now. Joining me today is Heidi Rome, an autism mom's coach and founder of Spectrum Oasis. Heidi's Autism Hope Mindset system empowers a mom to take back her life while creating a bright future for her Spectrum child. Welcome, Heidi. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me here, Joan. It's a pleasure to be here.
Heidi, you've spoken on this program about your autism path with your younger son, Ethan, and we know that he's now 14 and has severe autism that limits his ability to speak, and it can trigger disruptive behaviors when he becomes upset from sensory overload. Our listeners have heard your story about the conversation you had with Ethan when he was 11, and that took place via the spelling to communicate typing technique. That conversation transformed your sadness into a new perspective that autism is not a tragedy to be overcome, but is instead a spiritual path to be embraced. I want to challenge you a bit about Ethan's advice, "You just have to love me." And I want to talk about what ancient wisdom teaches us about love and how to apply these practical lessons on a spiritual autism journey. So let's start off today by talking about Chinese wisdom. What does ancient Chinese wisdom teach us about what love is?
Joan, we've talked about, in another segment, we talked about Hebrew, and Chinese characters, like Hebrew letters, are also very rich in imagery and metaphor, and they pack a lot of meaning. So if we look at the traditional version of the Chinese symbol for love, I think I'm pronouncing it right, A, it has root components with individual meanings and then a combined message. So there's a component that lies in the middle of the symbol called sin, and it means the heart, which itself, that character is even further broken down into other symbols that mean accept, feel, and perceive, and imply graceful motion. Then there's another component located directly above that one, which means breathe into, and then together, these symbols define love as something that deeply moves a person and instills in them a passionate yearning, and even visually, if you look at it, implies the slow walk of someone who is reluctant to move away or leave another. So you pull that all together, and Chinese wisdom is teaching that love is a combination of the heart, inspiration, grace, and action. And that just feels so true to me.
So Heidi, how do we apply this learning about the Chinese word for love to Ethan's parenting instruction, "You just have to love me"?
Answering that question is why I am looking at these ancient language words, for direction, because I want to understand better when he says, "You just have to love me," and that is your job. It's like, well, great kid, but what does that really mean? So that's why I'm looking, and I feel that all the aspects of the Chinese character for love shine a light on what makes Ethan's advice so wise and practical on the autism journey, because I love the combination of heart, acceptance, inspiration, and action. Love in its highest ideal and pragmatic form is a combination of heart connection, awareness of being inspired by something greater than you are in this physical realm, and realization that it is through action that love is truly actualized and recognized. Because love without action is empty. It's an empty, maybe a fleeting emotion, even if it's pleasant. Grace is one of the components indicated by the Chinese. Grace is perceived by the heart, more than your mind, really. Your heart feels grace, and it implies beauty and awareness of what is greater than a mortal can perceive with his, regular senses. Without grace, love may not feel beautiful or desirable. Without it, love can even become a burdensome obligation and maybe meaningless or without purpose, and something it's hard to say, but something to even be pushed away. Action, though, usually in the form of giving, is the manifesting agent of love's potential. One especially powerful way to give to another is to accept from them. And this is all the wisdom embedded in the Chinese, to accept the wholeness of who they are and all that they can give you in whatever form that giving may be. So just as we learned from Hebrew that giving is loving, loving is giving, Chinese teaches that loving is accepting and accepting is loving. And when we engage with another by giving or by receiving, our hearts open and we're inspired to take action. So from your heart, be inspired to accept, to connect, and to act. And this is how Ethan's words, "You just have to love me and that is your job," can be interpreted through the lens of ancient Chinese wisdom about love reflected in its very language.
Heidi, thank you so much for joining us. If you would like to learn more about this or Heidi and her work, you can visit momsspectrumoasis.com. That's moms with an S, momsspectrumoasis.com. Or as always, you can hear more from Heidi by visiting our website, cyacyl.com/Heidi.